Welcome to the Student Ministry Podcast. My name is Steve Cullum, and here we are at episode 33 of the Student Ministry Podcast. Today, we're going to be interviewing Auggie Mueller. Auggie is the Associate Pastor and Youth Pastor for Central Church of Christ in Griswold, Iowa. And Auggie and I have known each other a couple years now, and it's been cool to get to know him, but also hear what God has been doing through some hard times in his life over the years, but also to see what he's been doing recently. It's been really cool to just put all those pieces together and to hear Auggie put all those pieces together, because I know a lot of times there's several of us that have went through some difficult times trying to figure out and navigate the tough times of life and trying to figure out what God is doing in the midst of all that. And it's going to be great to hear Auggie talk about that, but also his transition and how he came into his current church and the crossover between him and the last youth pastor. So we're going to talk a lot about transitions today, and it's going to be great with Auggie. But before we dive into that conversation, we do want to thank our sponsors for today's podcast. First of all, WorkCamp NE. Their website is workcampne.com, and if you have not checked it out, make sure you do so. If you are looking for a worship opportunity that involves service and some elements of discipleship and just it's an all-around great experience for your students that gets them out and serving other people and interacting with other youth groups as well, make sure you check out WorkCamp's website and look into their summer camps that they run. Every summer. They run 3 to 4 or 5 camps every summer, but they also have opportunities for private events. And so if you're looking to do something over a weekend or maybe another time of year, make sure you check them out and let them know we sent you as well, and that'd be awesome. And our other sponsor is the National Network of Youth Ministries. Man, if you are trying to do this alone, and I know a lot of us have in the past, and maybe some of you still are trying to do this youth ministry thing alone, make sure you check out youthworkers.net. They are an awesome organization that their goal is to really connect youth workers together. So youthworkers.net, find a network in your local area. If there's not one, start one. And we're so grateful for what they do to make this podcast happen, along with. And before we jump into this interview with Auggie today, I also want to encourage you, if this is your first time listening, make sure you subscribe so you can get these every time we put them out. We're right now on a monthly schedule, and I want to encourage you to subscribe and send it to your friends. This is one of the ways that this podcast can get out there, is if you do subscribe and share it with others that you know would enjoy these great stories and hear what God is doing in youth ministries across the country and around the world, because that's the thing. This is honestly, everybody, this is not about me and never has been. The reason I do this podcast is because God is doing some awesome stuff around the world, and I just want to be the person that's helping to make those stories known. And so, and your role in that is to share them. So please subscribe, please share it with others you know, and please make sure you leave a positive comment if you like what you hear. If you don't, that's fine. But if you do like what you hear, make sure you leave a positive comment on your podcatcher of choice, and that would be amazing. All right, with all that being said, let's jump into this conversation with Auggie Mueller. Well, thanks so much for joining today, Auggie. How are you doing?
Doing good.
Cool. Well, we've gotten to know each other over the last couple of years, mostly through DYM has been kind of the initial contact, and kind of try to stay in contact throughout the year and see what's going on in your ministry. And things are a little kind of back and forth a little bit and everything. But for those that don't know you yet, or maybe just know your name and that's about it, I'd like to start off with just a simple question of to ask what your story is. Where has God brought you over the years to get you where you are today?
Yeah, I could go on forever about this. The story's pretty long, it seems like. But at 19 years old, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is a autoimmune disease that basically eats at your colon and eats at your joints. And at 20 years old, I had my colon removed, which really kind of altered my life. That's also where I really kind of found out that following God was more than just something you check off as a checklist, but you actually pursue him in a personal relationship. And with that, I started to grow more in Christ. And after the hospital visits, I kind of continued to grow. And then I really felt the calling, even when I was 12, way back in the day, which I'm 39 now, but when I was 12 years old, I was like, you can be a youth pastor? That's amazing. I want to go do that. And so I always thought that in the back of my mind, it'd be really, like, I thought it'd always be fun to do. But as I continued to kind of go on, I realized that I was really good at just relating to youth, which is kind of something that's really weird to be able to be good at, a 30-year-old to be able to do that. But I was a youth pastor at a few churches, but I didn't have a degree in middle of America. That's kind of a bad thing. And as I kind of continued to go on, I did all kinds of jobs, like retail jobs. And I mean, I've done it all at Walmart, if you want to know, like I've done it all, but I never was really happy. And one day I just kind of realized, had actually a youth pastor come to me, and he's like, you're wasting your life. You need to be a youth pastor. So I went through 4 years of college, which to me kind of showed me that I could do it. It also showed the churches that I was willing to stick with it. And went to a church during that time I was at college, and that church was amazing, and it's totally backwards and just had a lot of cool stuff going on. I went to a church camp. I yelled at a staff member, got fired from that church because I yelled at a staff member at camp. But I deserved that because I was a little arrogant still. But had kind of a rough patch of life this last year. I had what they call a mental stroke, which my brain basically thinks that I had a stroke, but I didn't have a stroke.
Wow. And
then my wife had a miscarriage. But through the whole time, we just kept saying, God, we honor you no matter what. We honor you no matter what. And it was really hard some days. And I was working at FedEx, pulling in hours at 3 a.m, throwing boxes on trucks. And this church came calling in January, and they said, hey, we'd like to have a conversation with you. And I said, absolutely. And they said, you're our guy. It's just going to take a while for us to go through this process with you. And I said, okay. So from January through March, I was their guy. And they said, hey, we want to hire you. We still have the other youth pastor here. He's not leaving until June. What we want you to do is we want you to come on Wednesdays and Sundays and talk with him and learn from him and just meet the kids. And so we did this transition that's just unheard of, where there's both youth pastors there at the same time, kind of handing off the reins and learning from each other and really supporting each other, which was really, really cool.
That's cool.
And then I got brought on full time here at Central Church of Christ in Griswold, Iowa, which is in the middle of nowhere. But it's one of those things where I've lived in a larger town for so many years. It's kind of fun to go back to a small town and go, oh, that's right. Before I walk across the street to my house, I'll know everything that's going on in town. This is amazing. So, but God has really brought us here, and it's been amazing. It's been a crazy ride too, because the first 3 weeks I was here, I did VBS and then church camp and then church camp. Yeah. So I was never actually here in the building.
Right.
But yeah. That's kind of my story, man.
Yeah. I kind of know what that's like in terms of showing up, right in the middle of the summer and being thrown into camps and everything else as well. That was kind of what I felt like last summer when I arrived, and was like, oh yeah, finally, you feel like you've been doing the work for 3 or 4 weeks, but you actually don't know the church yet. So it's maybe I should get to know the rest of the people here.
Right. It kind of set a precedent though, because people come in my office and are surprised I'm in my office. I'm like, I'm here.
That's maybe a good expectation, as long as you're working. Yeah. So did you grow up in a Christian home, or was that something that kind of developed a little later on in life?
My parents always went to church, and my dad actually did the same thing that I did. He went back to church. He went back to college.
Okay.
In his 30s, and graduated right close to being 40, and became a pastor. And so I moved around a lot, and we didn't stay in the same areas either. I'm originally from a small town called Hoskins, Nebraska, which is up by Norfolk, which is famous for Johnny Carson, in case anybody wants to know. And we moved from there to let me see. We went from Norfolk to Kentucky, and from Kentucky to Kansas, and from Kansas to Oklahoma. So okay. I've gotten to see some multiple cultures, because those are all different cultures.
Yeah.
And that I grew up as a pastor's son from 10 years old on. So I just followed my dad and learned a lot of things, and learned how bad leadership is sometimes.
Yeah.
But how well good leadership works too. I learned that by just kind of observing.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad it didn't not necessarily like push you away from the church, because I think a lot of times when people see that other side of things, it can have a negative reaction as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. So you've not really been at your church too long yet, but I'm sure things are going, and in terms of programming and your ministry and everything. So yeah, my next question is basically what's your ministry look like? What's it look like for a typical week for you and your programming and all that sort of thing?
Yeah. So we're still exploring what it actually looks like, but I'll tell you what we do right now.
Okay.
Our school is a block north of our church. So that really opens up a lot of avenues to being able to see the kids as they walk home, and we're literally between them and the town. So they have to walk by our church pretty much. So, right now we're exploring the opportunities to, have a gym that we just put onto our building, be more open for the high schoolers and junior hires after school.
Okay.
That's probably not going to go into effect till next year. We tried it this Wednesday, and people showed up, but we want to make it more than just a couple of kids. Wednesday night is our main programming night. We have anywhere between 60 and 80 kids come through our doors on a Wednesday night.
Okay.
It's crazy. We have a big gym, and it's a madhouse. Just balls flying everywhere, people flying. It's just like, how did you fall down when you were already on the floor? Like, I don't get this. And then, so we do junior high at 6:30, or middle school is what they call it here, which is 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we basically get an hour with them. And so we take them, and we have a specific youth room we go to, and we do a game, and then we break up in the small group, and then we do worship, and then we do a lesson. And that seems to work really well for our small town kids. And then we wash, rinse, and repeat the same thing at high school. It starts at 8. So we basically kick all the middle schoolers out at 7:45, and all the high schoolers are already there because there's nothing to do in the small town. So they show up at 6:32, and they just hang out in the gym, and they help us out of the church a lot. They do a lot of small service projects, which is really cool.
Cool.
And then we also do Bible school on Sunday morning, which seems like so old school and retro. We have 10, 12 kids show up, and it's amazing because they have great questions, and that's kind of what our programming looks like. We also do this thing called fifth quarter. If you guys don't know what that is, after football games, they walk over to our church, and we'll have 140 kids.
Wow.
And that's just high schoolers and junior hires. It's just crazy to be like, that's just pretty much the whole high school and junior high. And they hang out and eat food. And I've been doing games with them, and using the DYM Sidekick app, by the way.
Cool.
You got to shout out that. But it's one of those things where it's just a great opportunity to see kids who don't normally come to church and see them not want to talk to you. And then like 10 minutes later, they're joking with you.
Yeah.
It's one of our biggest outreaches throughout the year, and it's really cool to see. So that's what our programming looks like on a normal school schedule.
Cool. So I'm assuming you inherited all of that structure when you came in, or did you add any of that or change any of that yet?
I tried not to make too many changes. I changed a lot in the room. It doesn't seem like I changed a lot, but we added a TV so they could see a screen. There was only a whiteboard up until then. Okay. And then I also added a sound system. And so that's a huge change for this room. It doesn't seem like it's me or anybody else, but it's a huge change for these kids. Yeah. I also got rid of a bunch of old, nasty, moldy couches, which was just like the world had ended the first week. Everyone's like, there's no couches.
Of course.
Chairs. They're nice padded chairs. So
right. Shut up. You realize you were risking your life by sitting on those.
Let me show you this black mold that you will die from. I didn't change a whole lot. I did add worship. We didn't have worship before. Okay. And that was really hard because I don't sing well. I can play guitar, but I don't sing well. Mm-hmm. And so they have to hear me sing until we can get some more people that have more confidence in singing in front of their peers. Yeah. But we have added that feature. The kids like it a lot. I'm trying not to add a whole lot or change a whole lot. Yeah. Down the road, I do see that there are going to be changes. And it's just like a leadership personality. Yep. You know, everybody has their own form and style. And so, yeah.
Right. So what I'm hearing mostly, it seems like you've been more enhancing what was already there, making small changes, but saving the big ones for later, which is at least what I was taught in Bible college to do as well, and from my mentors, and it seems to have paid off for the most part. I ended up making a big change when I came on board. here in terms of programming, and it was a change that I did not want to make in my first year, but it seemed like the right decision. All leadership and everything was behind it, and all the volunteers were behind it. But I felt so weird making it like 2 months after I got here. I was like, no, I gotta wait. Hard. Yeah.
The hard thing about changes is like, we may not see it as a big change, but it's a drastic change, especially if you do it over time. Like we've done some painting, we've done some other things that are just small little incremental things, but it happened throughout the summer. Mm-hmm. But for people who didn't come throughout the summer, it's a massive change.
Right.
And that's so hard to remember, is like, kids don't want that.
Yeah. We actually just went through a series from XP3 all about change, and the idea, from Hebrews that Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. We can continue to lean on Him even in the middle of our changing world all the time. And so through that, we realized how resistant our students are to change, both in their personal life and in church life and everything too. And so even thinking through next summer for like our summer camp, I'm thinking about changing things up, and I'm like, oh great, I got to think through what kind of resistance am I going to get from this, because this could be it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So talk to me a little bit about that transition from you coming on and the other youth pastor still being there. Like, how did that work, other than you kind of just observing? Was there any sort of strategic steps that took place that would be helpful for other people to hear if they end up in a situation like that, maybe passing their ministry on to someone or following someone?
Yeah. I really wish that we could write a book on it, because it's an experience I think everybody should transition in ministry with. But there's not really a set strategy, like we're going to do this, there we go. It was more of like, let's sit down, let's talk about what's going to happen this week, let's talk about what's going to happen next week. So we have an idea. And so next week when we came to it, we had already an idea what was going to happen. And it was just kind of a review, and maybe let's change this because your personality is this and my personality is this. So it'll work well with this. And it was very strategic. Like we shot a video that was promoting the last night of Igniting Gap, which is what we call our middle school and high school meetings. And I usually play the idiot in the video. And he goes, no, you cannot play the idiot, because if you play the idiot, everybody will think you're dumb for the rest of your time here.
That makes
but if
sense,
I play the idiot, everybody knows I'm already who I am. But if I play the idiot, it's going to be way better. And so we did strategic things like that to where it made me have a successful win already with them, because I was the one that knew the answers. I was the one that had the answers.
That's cool.
So we did that as a strategy. And the other thing we did is, whenever people had questions and they went to the other youth pastor, he would say, that's a great question for Auggie. Go ask him. And it was like, oh man, I think doing those two things, not looking like an idiot and really sending the people to the new guy, really builds that guy up. It really does. It's so impactful, because it's like, why don't they come to me is often what you feel like. Why don't they come to me? Because I'm here too. And you're like, oh wait, they are coming to me because he's helping me out. It was amazing.
That's really cool. And it seems like you just had the best mindset of setting you up for success, which is huge. That's so cool. Cause I think, a lot of us come in, after other youth pastors that were here, and we're not necessarily, maybe there's not any time of crossover at all, but even if there is, there may be this sense of competition or whatever it is. And that's never good for a good transition at all.
Absolutely.
Wow. So anything else that you learned from that specific situation, or maybe even just in your transitions, kind of transitioning into my last question? I'm sure you've learned a lot through the years of, ups and downs with your health stuff. And then also, trying to find the church that God really wanted you to serve in and everything. What are some tips that you learned through the years that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I have a couple I always try to remind myself of is, first of all, you got to make sure you fit. And if you're not fitting in a place and you're not creating something to where you fit into a place, you're probably on the way out. And that's really hard to hear. It's hard to understand that. But like the last church I was at, I was kind of on the way out already, like mentally, but I wasn't ready to be there yet. And I realize this now, hindsight's 2020, but I realized that I basically created myself out of a job, which is great. It's awesome. but I wasn't willing to move on yet. And I should have been willing to move on. I mean, I had multiple opportunities to move on. I just didn't feel like it was right yet. And that was my own personal pride getting in the way of the fact that, like, I didn't fit in. I wasn't doing anything that someone else couldn't have done already there, and people were already doing there. And instead of creating something new for me, I was just staying there. So being stagnant and not wanting to realize it's time to move on. Because if you stick around too long and time to move on, it hurts more, I think.
Yeah.
And another thing I've learned is really it comes down to, it's easy to sit there and make something about yourself. You know, I've done youth ministries where it was all about me, all about Auggie, you know, Auggie this, Auggie that. They called it my Aug Nation. You know, there was Augtopia existed, and then they would send us to the room and say, go to Augtopia. And I'm like, no, really? And it became all about me. And that really destroys the idea that there is a ministry that's for God's kingdom instead of you.
Yeah.
And as easy as it is to let your pride get and take that and run and be like, yes, that's all about me. And ministry is not something you do alone. And even if you're in a small community, we're in a community of 900 people, and this ministry is not done by itself. We have 12 people that come on Wednesday night, and we always want more because we want people to be involved, because ministry is not just one person deal.
Yeah.
You know, Jesus did ministry with 12 people. The disciples did ministry with all kinds of other disciples. It wasn't just one person. Even Paul went with, you know, Timothy, Titus, John Mark, and all those guys. Like, it's not something you do alone. And as dumb as it sounds, you have to have someone else. This last year, the DYM community is the reason why I'm still in ministry. And, you know, DYM 100 is just one of those things where it fell at the right time, where it was like, yes, I needed this. I needed to recover with you guys. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been so cool to be a part of that. And yeah, just, you know, a couple weeks ago at DYM 200 this year, just reminded again, it seemed like everything was really shouting at me what you were saying there at the end, like, stop trying to do it alone. Like, and not that I'm really trying to do it alone, but I think sometimes I get in that kind of mindset because I'm surrounded by a team of volunteers, but am I leaning on them as much as I should? Am I handing things off as much as I should, or am I trying to do it all?
Right. Exactly.
So, man, Auggie, it's been great to have you on today. I'm sure people are going to want to connect with you and find out a little more about your story. And so, where's the best places for people to connect with you online? Yeah,
I have a vlog. They can go to YouTube. It's Augment, AUGGMENT. I have Twitter, Instagram that they can follow too. That's AUGGMENT. Those are the best places to communicate with me. They can also email me at my church, which is Auggie@griswoldchurch.org.
Cool. And talk to us a little bit about your vlog. Like, what's the content usually like? A little, and you know, kind of what can people expect to see up there?
They can expect to see a lot of stupidity and just things that I'll either be talking about what has happened, or if I'm confident enough to pull out the camera, I'll show them what's happening and just talk about things that have impacted me, things that I've been learning from God or learning from the community, on how I can apply it to my life, and maybe they can glean from it. It's just kind of like a week-to-week highlight of what's going on. If you watch it from week 1 to now, which is now we're a whole year later and 58 weeks in now, you can really see how God worked on my heart and really broke me and rebuilt me. It's really cool.
That's cool.
Really cool.
Cool. Well, again, thanks so much for being on today, and may God bless your ministry.
Yeah, God bless you too, man.
All right. Oh, man. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Auggie. I know I did. I love talking with Auggie because he's had some rough times in his life, both with some health stuff and trying to figure out what God is doing in his life. And it's been really cool to see that happen over the last couple years, and to hear on a regular basis what's going on. And I'm so glad that you guys got to hear that today. If you have not connected with Auggie yet, if you've not already pulled up your phone and made sure you checked out his vlog on YouTube or his social media, make sure you do that. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to the Student Ministry Podcast. We're at Twitter. We're at StuMinPod. That's StuMinPod. We're also on Facebook. Just search for the Student Ministry Podcast, and make sure again that you subscribe on your podcatcher of choice, whatever you use: Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Overdrive, whatever it is. Wait, Overdrive's not that. It's Overcast. Podcast. That's right. Whatever you guys use, make sure that you do subscribe and share it with others. And you can also connect with me on Twitter at Steve Cullum. That's SteveCullum. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to today's Student Ministry Podcast. It's always a blessing for me to do these episodes and to talk with youth pastors all around the world, but to also share them with you, because God is doing some great stuff, and it's such an opportunity to share them with you and to play a little bitty role in that. We do want to thank our sponsors once again, WorkCamp NE. Their website is workcampne.com. That's WorkCampne.com. And make sure you check them out for your any sort of like service-based mission camp opportunity. And also make sure you check out youthworkers.net for the National Network of Youth Ministries. We're incredibly grateful for their sponsorship and what they do to connect youth workers in networks around the country. Make sure that you check them out, especially if you've been doing youth ministry on your own. Make sure you check them out and connect with some other youth workers in your area. All right, that's episode 33 in the books. We'll be back next month with another great story, but until then, may God bless your ministry.